Thank you very much for your time, Deepthi. Means a lot to me that we can have this conversation about integration of coaching and sports sciences. You will agree with me that we are still at a nascent stage as far as the use of sports sciences in India is concerned. We have taken those baby steps. We are making progress, but we need to do a lot more. But I want to understand from you, where exactly is India in terms of integrating sports sciences and the support that sports science can offer into our coaching process?
First of all, thank you so much. It's a very important topic, and I'm glad we're getting a chance to speak about it. So, it's been 12 years in sports administration, and I remember that when I first came into the administration side of it, what we were really doing for an athlete was finding the right shoes or ensuring they have the right equipment or the ability to buy flight tickets to send them for a competition. Today, it's very heartening to see the strides we've taken. Even when we say sports science, the word sports science was not something athletes used normally. And today, you have athletes, you have coaches, you have federations, you have the ecosystem actually talking about, oh, what is the sports science experts that we have? For us, we've been very fortunate to have someone like John Gloucester, who was with the Indian cricket team, because the early days of GoSports was only about making money available for basic things for athletes. But I remember this one incident where there was an athlete who wanted to had to go through an ACL surgery, and the doctor made it seem like it had to happen right now. And all we were trying to do is make the money available. And I remember, speaking at that point, our ambassador is also Rahul Dravid. And, I was talking to him and he was like, how are you going to decide if they need it or not need it? And I was like, we're just making the money available. The doctor has said it has to be done. So there was no thought process also that you have to first ensure that the athlete has to try everything possible from a rehab standpoint before they go under the knife. But if you end up going to a surgeon first, the job of the surgeon is to always solve the issue. And, a very few people knew about sports injuries and could even understand what really needs to be done or understand what is the impact of that surgery. So I think for us, having John Gloucester has been one of the best things that happened to the foundation for two aspects. And my own learning, when I think back, the amount I have been able to observe and understand and be part of athlete journeys has primarily been because of sports science. So one is obviously injury, the other is nutrition. Many athletes, even today, young athletes at 13, 14, 15, have never met a nutritionist in their life, have never done their blood tests, have never done a full body assessment, and they are supremely talented. And, until an injury happens, nobody is even thinking, I need to know what's my base level, what's my base data, how do I go about it? So when we bring an athlete on board, these are the first three things that happen. We try and see what is the baseline markers, and then based on that, every quarter or twice a year, depending on the need, we kind of move. But we did struggle with coaches because, as you know, from your 4-decade journey in journalism, the coach was everything to an athlete: the nutritionist, the trainer, the SNC, the parent sometimes, and the coach. So so how do you ensure that you can provide enough information where the coach can trust you on why this is important and why this will help the athlete perform better? Because there are cases of overtraining, there is stress fractures, like the commonality of injuries proved that we are not doing something right. So I just feel very happy that the 200 athletes that we have the good fortune of being part of their journeys, uh, we are able to show them also and allow them to take an interest in their own health, because our philosophy is not about just going and winning a medal, trying everything possible and going and winning a medal, but it's about long-term health. And this is something that John has constantly instilled in all of us in the team, that you can't change something of an athlete's life so much that when they retire, they're struggling with a health issue because of what you've done during their training days. So I think the ability to understand your body better, what you're ingesting, the anti-doping protocols, medicines that you're taking. So a lot of it is just creating awareness, education, and finding the right experts for them. So I personally feel while we are in a not nascent, I think we're halfway there from where the world is. We definitely have come a long way, so in terms of, just what we are able to provide. In fact, even in meetings now with MOC meetings, federations are coming and saying we have a sports psychologist, we have a nutritionist, we have an SNC trainer at a federation level. So obviously we don't need to give that then, because we are monitored very well there, so I feel it's not nascent. It's definitely come a long way, and it's only going to get better from here.
Thank you, Deepthi. Kind of gives us a good perspective of what has happened in the last 12 years, about how the transformation is taking place. But my own sense, Deepthi, is of coaches still being reluctant, especially some of the older coaches. I think the younger coaches understand the need for SNC and for psychology and for nutrition and even for sleep as a recovery tool. I think they understand, but perhaps some of the senior coaches are still reluctant in our country. How do we overcome this reluctance, Deepthi? Is there some easy method in which we can convince them that, look, sports science is essential and you got to trust each scientist and their inputs? Is there some way we can achieve magic overnight? Because if you're planning to host the Olympic Games in 2036, we want the Youth Olympic Games in 2030. We need to become a better sporting nation. We are a good sporting nation at the moment, but to get to that competitive level and be and brush shoulders with the rest of the world, we need our sports science to step up, and we need our coaches to accept sports sciences. How easy or difficult do you think it is going to be for India?
I think first we must first acknowledge that coaches brought performance in the models they knew at a time when sports science was not available to them. So there is a belief system that I did it when I didn't know all this. So why should I do it now when I have a model in place? I think that comes with this continuous learning, education, upskilling ourselves. Most, I won't say all, but most or some of the coaches have found a formula that works. And before, we were very one size fits all kind of programs. We were not curating it. So I put 30 people on it, 3 will definitely make it. But the other 27 are dropping off with serious injuries or not able to cope up. And we never tracked data like that in the past. So it was all, okay, I made 2 champions, and they've made very good champions. I mean, there was talent of those athletes and what the coach brought and where they've reached. So I think first, our generation has to also accept what they've done at their time. Uh, what we try to do is, we have to first understand what kind of a coach this is. Is this someone who likes research and data, or is this someone who's experiential, or is this someone who likes to hear it from another athlete or another coach? So we try and facilitate that based on uh, what the coach wants. There's no point talking to some coach who wants to hear it from another coach and showing, sir, हमने ये data निकाला है, यहाँ थे ये athlete, यहाँ से यहाँ गया. Like, you keep your papers that side. My athlete will not, function like this. So I think understanding our coaches better and saying, maybe you want to speak to this coach. They've done it with this typical body type of an athlete. It has worked there. Do you want to try it? Can we pilot it? And bringing everyone onto the same page. I think There have been some challenges with sports science experts going in and changing what the coach has put in place without discussions and without conversation. So I would definitely encourage any new intervention, any new exercise, anything new should not derail or make the coach feel like you've derailed. Whether you're moving front or back doesn't matter, but you have to bring them on board. So trust, I would say trust and communication and sharing openly, because ultimately we want the athlete to succeed, whether it's the coach, whether it's individual, private organizations like us or the government or reporters or media. Everyone wants that athlete to shine. Uh, and I think if we are able to establish that in the start, then nobody's going to feel odd. Having said that, it's not been easy. There have been different situations where coaches have been like, I know this won't work, and what is this sleep and hydration and overtraining? There's nothing like overtraining. You have to train. This is the training regime. Then you have to show that if they continue doing this training regime, then there is going to be an injury. And then sometimes the injury happens, and then there's this aha moment saying, acha, acha, aapne kaha tha, theek hai. So I think not taking it personally as us, but taking it with a pinch of salt on ultimately it's for the athlete, but also bringing the athlete into understanding this. Most of the time, the athlete sits out of their own life and let everyone else dictate. I think for us, it's very important that we educate the athlete. What are you putting in your mouth? Who is touching you? Who is doing your service? What is this physiotherapist doing? What is, because they're doing this, how are you going to move better? How are you going to feel tomorrow? Are you writing down? How are you waking up the next day? Are you tired? Are you, so there's so many basic elements. So I feel it's a joint effort. It cannot be one sided. um, Everyone is opening up to the idea today. Today SNC, uh, physios, sports masseuses, it's a very common thing. Nutritionists, even sports psychology is still nascent, I would say. There's not that kind of acceptance, because most of the athletes have never spoken to a psychologist, forget a sports psychologist. So large part of it is really dealing with your own beliefs and your traumas and your other elements. So the coach suddenly feels like whatever I've done is gone out of the window. But I think it's a process, and we have to let experts be the experts, but facilitate it in a way that and you also have parents, right? Even parents are such important stakeholders, because 13, 14 years, parents have invested the time, effort, energy, and got them to where they are. And suddenly a coach will come, a team will come and say, I know best, and we will change everything overnight. I think give it some time. And I've seen with athletes like a Pranoy, a Kidambi Shrikant, Chirag Satvik from badminton, all train at the same academy, all different body types, all recover differently, all injury prone levels are different, anxiety levels are different, gut gut the way the gut operates is different, the way the mind operates is different. So in one academy, under one coach, under one place, if 4 or 5 athletes are so different, obviously if you're training across the country, uh, it's just something you learn over a period of time. So nowadays, every time there's a new expert who comes in and says, we'll go and change it, I'm like, no, the first 3 months, don't change anything. Just observe, understand the process, see what they're doing, let them come to you, but sit there and show that you care. And I think the minute you can establish that you really care, you really believe in the athlete and the coach, magic can happen. At least that's my mantra, which has probably worked worked so far.
So many wonderful points you make, Deepthi. But one thing stuck in this last couple of minutes that you were talking. It's about trust being two-way. It is not one way. the coach has to trust the sports science team, and the sports science team has to also trust the coach and win the trust of the coach. I mean, it works both ways.
Yeah.
Now, as facilitators, our job is sometimes to convince coaches into believing the report that sports scientists bring in, or sometimes to convince the sports scientists to modify the way they present their data, the way they present themselves to the coaches. Like you said, every coach is different, every athlete is different. Similarly, every sports scientist is different. But as facilitators, what is it that we can do to ensure that, another word that you used in the end, magic happens? Magic can happen. We have to believe that. Who can facilitate this building of faith between the coach and the sports science team, especially when it comes to some of the scientists holding back a lot of information because they are under confidentiality clauses. They have signed document, don't want to share with the coach, but without the coach knowing, it's going to be tough for the coach to understand what is happening in an athlete's mind, or with an athlete in terms of physical health. I think it's important that we have this discussion, and some of us facilitate this greater level of understanding between coaches and the support staff. How can that happen, Deepthi?
I
If you
think
got
the
some
answer for
examples, if you got some examples, you can share
yeah,
some. That'll be very
yeah.
enlightening.
So for me, I think a large part of this is dependent on the athlete, because the athlete has to be empowered to say, I'm feeling good after this. I want to try this. I want to give this a shot. Uh, Again, with some of the new age coaches, you're able to, they're open. I think open is the right word, uh, because they're also trying to find their champions, they're in the process of creating their champions, so they are also ready to experiment, understand. They've studied differently, their training days have been different. A good example of this would be someone like Vijay Sharma in weightlifting. um, has a superb model, gets his athletes completely, has created Olympic champion, is a Dronacharya awardee himself. It's very interesting how he sees data and how he uses that to his benefit. So we also have worked with many athletes like a Jeremy and everybody else, in camps. He was one of the youngest youth Olympic medalists, had very different health concerns at different points, but the beauty was to have someone there on ground and see how things can change and progress. I think this remote models sometimes don't work. And the coach also feels like you're seeing the athlete for 1 hour and you're telling me the 23 hours what we should do. uh you know so can you just go spend time 2 3 days, just stay there and see them train, and the amount you learn and pick up, even as an expert, even if you're a nutritionist. I encourage every expert to just go to the actual training base. Competition is very different, training base is very different, because I mean, that best, just sitting there and seeing what a daily routine is like, because then the kind of insights and data you can give is very different. So coaches want to really see if you're invested. um, I've seen that with Pulela Gopichand. I've seen that with the Nihar Amin and the swimmers. I've seen that with the Pradeep Kumar and swimmers. Vimal sir has also worked very differently with athletes. I've seen it in the para athlete space. In fact, the coach is one of the most important stakeholders in the athlete's journey, because even from a movement standpoint, and most of the coaches don't even understand the world of parasport. So it is completely trust based, and there's an openness to share. So I think as facilitators and stakeholders, investing the time to understand who we are working with, what do they want, what are their challenges, what is it that they are trying to figure. Because sometimes I feel today, okay, I'm a sports psychologist, I'm a nutritionist. Okay, you come to me, we'll have a session and I'll give you this whole plan. Maybe that's not what's required. Um, you know, But only if you go there to the training base and sit, you will know that just half an hour after the training, there is this point when the energy dips and there's exhaustion, and that's the time they probably need something. But you won't know it on that 1 hour call because you're prepared for that call. So as facilitators, I think coaches expect that don't give gyan. If you don't know, you don't know. Or you introduce the experts in a manner saying they have helped A, B, C, D. This is where they were. This is the results that they've seen. This is what international athletes do. I always suggest our athlete managers take Olympic medal, top 3 medal routines. What is it that they do? Who are their experts? What did they change to move from, if they were throwing X to 0.1 more, what was that change that they did to bring that to then showcase it here? We've seen that with someone like a Sumit until in the parasport space. He was throwing well, but for him to even cross that 60 meters, 65 meters, and now hopefully 70 meters, the prosthetic had to be looked at, and his coach did not look at it at that. It was just about building strength, building strength. But in parasport, it was the equipment, getting into that, customizing it, finding how he'll find the balance to give the best throw. So there's so many nuances, which is so beautiful in sport, which I feel like if everyone can get into the layers of the mundane, I would say, rather than that one competition day, there's a lot to um, share and for magic to happen.
Deepthi, my own way of explaining a coach's relationship with the support staff and the athlete being the center of the universe for all of them is to look at the athlete as a business project,
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
coach being the CEO, and there being a chief nutrition officer, a chief physiotherapy officer, a chief strength and conditioning officer, a chief
To
psychologist.
write your idea down.
Yeah, so when we look at this
Yeah.
as a business venture, as a venture, right? Then perhaps there'll be greater understanding. You make this great point about the athlete asserting himself or herself. Now, are our athletes ready to do that, Deepthi? Given the levels of education of some of our athletes, they're not highly educated. Do they have the confidence to tell coaches and the support staff what they're feeling, what the outcome of a particular process has been, and whether they're comfortable or not? Do you think we are ready with those kind of athletes, or are we still finding those athletes who can speak to coaches confidently enough to tell them that, look, this is not working out for me?
So we're getting there. We're not there fully. But I think the power of social media and YouTube, the number of athletes who have said मैंने ये टेक्निक YouTube पे सीखे कोच को दिखाया और फिर हमने ये ट्राई किया, are so many suddenly, which was not the case. And these are young athletes, 15, 16-year-olds with first time mobiles and first time access to internet, right? So I think it's a very new India. Most importantly, I feel, so we as part of our process, we have these athlete interactions, which is the last stage after we get applications. We do their potential. What is a 15-year-old throwing here, there, all of that. They go through the entire process. The last round is really just talking to the athlete. And it is so unbelievable how that is changed every 4 to 5 to 6 years. 12 years back, it was, I want to play for India. That was the dream. I want to play for India. I want to be an international athlete. Then change to, मुझे medal जीतना है international event. Then मुझे Olympian बनना है. Last week, I met a 13-year-old table tennis player in West Bengal who had to move to, we're supporting the Raman TT Center through our Girls for Gold program, the entire academy. So this young little girl is moving from West Bengal to Chennai, doesn't know the language, doesn't know the food, not with her parents. And she just turns around and says, uh, 2032, I have to win a medal. So this is my important years. I'll have to take difficult decisions to stay out of home and really train myself, because I'll get two Olympics as exposure, and next one I will win a medal. 13 years old, not prompted, not said it eloquently, but with that fire in the eyes. So I've had the I keep thanking myself on the blessings of meeting young India, because just seeing the confidence level, right? Like before, athletes would say, I went to this competition and I didn't see, I met my hero, my icon, but I didn't go and speak to them. Today, they are going, they're speaking, they're taking a picture, they're coordinating with them and emailing them later saying, what is your training schedule and tell me now. So this young athlete today is very different. And I feel education has not, it is a barrier for sure, from a confidence, from an approach standpoint, but I feel that's kind of changing a lot.
Super. Thank you so much, Deepthi, for some great insights. I've got only 5 minutes left on this. Is there something that I should have asked you and I did not, Deepthi, on this subject of integration of coaches? Do you want to talk about how parents are changing, how they play an integral role in acceptance of sports science, or how they've already introduced to their children to sports science at a very early stage, because then they come in with the athletes are
That
more
habit,
open to
yeah.
accepting sports science support, and they can then convince the coaches that they need this kind of help. Do you want to talk a little bit about the parents as well?
Yeah, very quickly. I think the first thing we have to understand is where does the athlete train from or live at? If they are at an academy or a setup, then there's already an ecosystem provided. But if they're coming from home, you have to understand what are our food habits, what is it that they're serving there, what is healthy there, are they vegetarian, non-vegetarian, access, availability. So sports science starts much early on in athletes who stay at home, right? Because they've already started playing, they need nutrition, they need eggs, and all of that will already start. But athletes in academies, the access to nutrition and what gets made and what is available is what sometimes is different, though things have picked up now. So planning things for minors without parents, especially parents where the athletes live with parents, is not the greatest option. You have to bring them into the conversation with the coach, with the expert, wherever it is, because they are so integral to it. But you should also know when parents, have to draw that line and trust the expert. So we deal with a lot of that stuff as well. Um, but I have a very interesting example of this young girl who's a swimmer, and her anxiety was very funny. Just before her swim, her anxiety was so high, she would have to go to the loo. And then when we got into the details of sitting, talking, never been on a nutrition program, and what she was eating before the match didn't help her either ways. So such a small tweak, and she's just gone on to give her personal best, and things have changed. She's confident. Just one slight tweak of food, but staying with the parent could not have happened without that. So again, understanding, embracing that each athlete is different. There's no one size that fits all. Coaches, stakeholders, um, today you have managers as well, who are managing commercial arrangements of athletes. I feel everyone understanding what their role is and not overstepping into each other's role will create a happy, healthy athlete that creates magic for India.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deepthi, for the time and for the insights, and for the candor with which you express yourself, and for sharing the positivity that India is moving in the right direction and perhaps at a better trajectory than ever before. I think India is in for some good times, but we have to keep our eyes and ears open and nudge the parents, the athletes, the coaches, and the support staff to come together and move in the same direction. Thank you ever so much, Deepthi, for this conversation.